Morning, everybody. How are we doing today? It is a Sunday morning here in the upper Midwest in Minnesota. It's a fairly cool day, which I'm not complaining about. I've kind of had my fill of summer heat, to be honest. I don't mind summer heat, but I don't like the humidity whatsoever. So, DJing a lot, like work keeps coming in, and it's a blessing because it's finally feeling a little bit of financial security. I'm not there yet, but with the work that's coming down the road, I should be able to kind of catch up on a lot of things, which will be nice. It's been a long 2 years since the wife went her way, and I don't want to get into that story too much, but addiction, depression, all those things can really spiral someone out, and it was really driven by the pandemic. And she's not doing well from what I've been told recently, which is hard on my soul because all that went down, I still care about her. So prayers sent to the cosmic, whatever the hell there is, because poor thing needs help, and I can't be the one to help her, but still, it hurts your soul when you hear someone you cared about for so long is really going through it. The DJing has been really taking off, and one of the things I really try to root my DJ sets in is jazz, blues, and obviously R&B. And they're kind of obvious choices in a way. A lot of jazz music, contrary to what the popular jazz heads of today would have you be thinking, was fun celebration music. A lot of jazz is so rooted in the church and a good time that it was very natural to have a good time to it. Then the music of the jump blues into the R&B, early rock and roll, that music's all meant for us to let loose and have a good time and not stress about our problems and not worry about the dilemmas that we're being overwhelmed by Monday through Friday. It's now Friday evening, Saturday, let's have a good time. Sunday, we're going to go to church. And it's just a powerful medication for the soul. And I've often said before, the winners of the great wars write the history books. It's a cliche, we all kind of know that fact. The losers of those conflicts get to make great art. Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Can't be written by a citizen of Rome. It can't be written by a scribe in Egypt. You can't be the ruling class, the ruling people, and write about freedom. Freedom is the dream of the oppressed. It's a man without freedom that can tell you what freedom is and means. It's the people lost in the wilderness that can dream of a promised land. And the moral authority always lies in the hands of those who are under the thumb of tyranny, feeling the thumb of oppression. And great art is almost always driven by a great pain, a great anxiety, a great fear, a great tyranny, a great weight. And the art elevates us and lifts us out of that mire. And jazz is absolutely, the blues is absolutely driven by these conditions. They're absolutely the woven fabric of a people not wanting to feel sorry for themselves, but rather overcome and lift themselves up out of that and free themselves from those conditions. And it's that intangible that the magic lies in. It's that ingredient which you can't replace it with something else. You can't, either you got it or you don't. But that magic ingredient is what allows us great art to transcend across time, space, and generations. That voice of rising up against oppression will always have an audience. And if you write songs that say someday the elite, the rich, the powerful are going to get theirs, you will always have an audience for that art. Whether it's John writing the book of Revelations in a coded message about Rome, or John Coltrane expressing in a coded message about America and the world in a broader sense. Because Coltrane got very global with a lot of his ideologies, which is what made him be a leader in the counterculture movement in the 60s in a lot of ways. A lot of the beatniks, a lot of the writers were very inspired by Coltrane and his human consciousness and human spirituality. So much of what I love to play at my sets is rooted in that condition, because I know the power of that missing the magic ingredient that those who try to replicate it can never quite bottle. And you can do great jazz, but that magic isn't going to guaranteed be there. You can make great funk, great R&B, great all these different art forms and imitate them, but if you're missing that struggle, it's just never going to be the same. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today is some great jazz compilations, some remix projects. These are all going to be more speaking to the fusion crossover era of the 60s and 70s. The organ jazz, the guitar jazz in the 60s, the straight up fusion R&B stuff from the 70s, the Donald Byrds and Weather Reports and that kind of stuff. And a lot of this stuff in the 90s and 2000s have been sampled a lot in hip hop, which kind of gave it a new audience. And it led to some of the leading DJs and remix projects of that time repackaging sometimes the originals, sometimes remix versions of the originals. And there's actually quite a lot of this stuff out there. It has mixed results. So some of these remix projects are better than others. What I like about a lot of them is it's a nice way to put a lot of good jazz tracks into my crates without filling them up with a ton of individual records. Some of these are probably going to be difficult to find nowadays on vinyl. I'm guessing there's probably downloads available of a lot of it still. And we're going to start off with this great Blue Note Trip series. And they were compiled by various different DJs over the years. But this was by the Maestro, who I believe was a French DJ. And the French were kind of leading the pack in this acid jazz remix revival. A guy like Saint Germain, who we'll talk about a little bit later, was playing that jazz fusion crossover mix, mixing it into a lot of his sets. And what you have here, and not all of this is called direct from the Blue Note canon. You got Patty Drew, Claire Fisher, Chico Hamilton, Marlena Shaw, Charlie Hunter featuring Nora Jones, which is what this is, which is a bit of a later recording. Nancy Wilson, who I don't remember ever being affiliated with Blue Note. Horace Silver, Soul Live, which again is kind of newer stuff. Cassandra Wilson, which is more current. Blue Mitchell, the great trumpet player. So great stuff on there. And these first two especially, I bring these quite a lot. I love the Ronnie Foster on here, Bobby Hutcherson, Montera, Lonnie Smith. Joe Torres, Get Out of My Way, Pretty Woman, I love that song. Donald Byrd, Buscemi. It's just some really good stuff. We're going to go through these kind of quickly, but these are also Maestro, if I remember. Yep. And these came out, I think they were after the ones I just showed you. These could have been first, actually, and then those ones came out. And I don't play these two quite as much for some reason. But Grant Green, Sookie's on here. Saint Germain, Rose Rouge, which was a great Blue Note jazz remix crossover. Patty Drew, Fever's on here. Jimmy McGriff, Donald Byrd again. Buddy Rich, The Beat Goes On, fun. Edie Palmieri, Bobby Hutcherson, A Taste of Honey. Again, Nancy Wilson, Gene Harris, the fabulous piano player out of the Three Sounds. I think this was the next set. Getting up and going down. Again, Maestro. And again, the same type of things here. Lobby Schiffer, who Eminem sampled for, Slim Shady. Dr. Dre sampled it, let's be clear. Charlie Hunter, Mos Def, Gwen McCrae, the great kind of disco R&B singer, Ronnie Laws, who I'm a big fan of, Lou Donaldson, Cannonball Adderley, Why Am I Treated So Bad, which wasn't out on Capitol, I think it was. Gene Harris again. I mean, just some fantastic stuff here. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, That Dare. That's fun. I need to go through these two again. It's been a while since I played those two as well. These are just fun comps to bring along to any set that you do. And I think these are the last two that I have on vinyl, this set. I don't think these are Maestro anymore. I think these are somebody else. Jazzanova does these two. And Jazzanova has some good stuff out there. I like one of their big albums. Was a really fun record from around 2002 or so. But again, Hutcherson Silver, Sheila Jordan, Gene Harris, Curtis Fuller, Tina Brooks, with a little bit surprised I think that's on there. Charlie Rouse, some Lee Morgan. So again, great stuff. And a fun way to have jazz in your crates. That's going to be somewhat danceable, somewhat swinging, somewhat grooving. You'll definitely be foot tapping stuff. It won't be anything avant-garde, anything free. It won't be anything even too hard bop bebop. It's going to be more R&B flavored, which for DJs is what you really are wanting. This is the Lost Grooves, rare and previously unissued slices of funk from the vaults of Blue Note, 67 to 70. And I think for DJs with the Blue Note canon, 67 to 70 was really that moment where the jazz roots are still there and prevalent, but the crossover of the fusion stuff's really starting to take root, led by guys like Donald Byrd and Lou Donaldson and Grant Green and John Patton, Stanley Turrentine, Reuben Wilson. Yeah, I mean, this is great stuff. I don't really think it was too rare, to be honest. And this was all post-sale. So a lot of this stuff's going to be from the Liberty era of the Blue Note canon, which is when they're no longer an individual entity. They're now run by Liberty Records. And the artwork changed, some of the artists changed. It led to a real shift in Blue Note sound, Blue Note's look. And I think for the DJs and the artists, and even for Liberty Records, the fusion crossover stuff was commercially viable. Whereas some of the more out stuff just didn't have a commercial avenue to go down. This is a great Grant Green compilation. And it's going to cover a lot of that same era. It's going to go back to early 60s in the first set. With some like great stuff like Grandstand and Wives and Lovers, My Favorite Things. Fantastic version of Talking About JC. I mean, just great stuff. And that's going to be more traditional guitar-driven jazz. But side 2 has more of the Walk in the Night, Windjammer, Ain't It Funky Now, The Final Calm Down, Sookie Sookie. And that's going to be more of the real R&B stuff that Grant Green started to dive into at some times. Blue Note Revisited is a remix project. And it's got a lot of the early 2000 artists who really were proponents of this sound. La Funk Mob, Kenny Dope, Kyoto Jazz Massive, DJ Spinna, Bugs in the Attic, Madlib, Jay Dilla, Jazzanova, Ozone Latte. I mean, a lot of those are great artists that I have some of their own material. And the results of these remixes is really mixed and varied. And I have a certain tempo that I like to find, a certain melodic center that I look for. And so there was only a few songs here that I really, really connected with. Time to Remember by Grant Green was one of the ones I really liked a lot. Some of it gets a little bit more abstract, a little bit more broken, a little bit more jarring and jaunty, or sometimes it gets too up-tempo. And I don't usually go that bright in my sets, excuse me. Now, here's another fun Blue Note Greatest Samples from the Blue Note Lab, produced by Eli Wolf. And a lot of this stuff is stuff that was sampled in hip-hop, Droppin' Science. And, I mean, David McCallum, The Edge, Dr. Dre sampled that for Na 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 Na. But, I mean, that McCallum record was not by any means a Blue Note record. That was, maybe it was Capitol or I think it was Columbia, but I think it was a major label. Some white dude doing kind of soundscapey shit that Dre found and sampled. Brother Jack McDuff, Grant Green down here on the ground, Ronnie Foster, Lou Donaldson, Lonnie Smith. I mean, a lot of the stuff like Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Diggable Planets, that era hip hop. Some good stuff on here. And that's not remixed in any way, so it's just those original tracks for you to have access to. That's the Blue Note breaks. And again, it's kind of the same thing, unremixed, I should say. Jazz Originals, The Beat Goes On by Buddy Rich. Illusion by Andrew Hill. Donald Byrd, Street Lady. I mean, Howard Roberts, the guitar player. Dirty Old Bossa Nova. You Made Me Very Happy, Lou Rawls. So, I mean, some of that stuff isn't even Blue Note in origin in any way. The best of Blue Note Brazil, Blue Note Latin Groove. And a lot of this stuff, again, is not quote-unquote Blue Note vault stuff. Amor Deodato's on here, Joao Donato. A lot of this is looks like Brazilian in its origin, to be honest. Some good stuff. And a lot of times I'll just skip through that, find something that feels tempo-wise, and just drop something. Blue Note Breakbeats Volume 2, which is one of that last record before this was a compilation off these records. Kind of similar stuff. The Best of Blue Juice, Squeeze. Some good stuff on here. Some Les McCann, Nancy Wilson, Gerald Wilson, Patty Drew, Candido. So it's fun stuff. I mean, it's good stuff to dig through. Mostly modal, blue and groovy. Jackie McLean, Donald Byrd, Hank Mobley, The Flip. And what's weird about this stuff is a lot of it's not really modal at all. Wahoo by Duke Pearson, a great song. It's probably a little bit more boogaloo than it is modal, to be honest. And then Blue Note had such a cachet with that name that a lot of the stuff, like I said, it's not even coming from Blue Note Vaults, but they still put the Blue Note Remix name on it to help sell it and get marketed to people. And then Verve was probably the other label that really had a strong draw, and a lot of the second era Verve canon, Creed Taylor era, 62, 63, up into 1970, that stuff was very remixable, very well recorded, great production values, interesting grooves and patterns, and a lot of world sounds were incorporated into the Creed Taylor era stuff. And so DJs like early on, like the Thievery Corp out of Corporation out of DC, were digging into the Verve vaults. And this is sounds from the Verve Hi-Fi compiled by Thievery Corporation. And you got Willie Bobo, Stan Getz, Louis Bonfa, Oscar Gilberto, Chico Hamilton, Richie Havens, Kenyon Hopkins, Wynton Kelly, Sergio Mendez. And again, not all this stuff is going to be actually Blue Note. However, Blue Note's been bought up first by Liberty, then United Artists, and now it's part of some massive corporation. And that corporation has a lot of other jazz vaults in their canon that these guys can sift through and still have the legal rights to use and make it all like it sound like it's all Verve Hi-Fi, but it's not. I mean, I've looked for a lot of this original material, and I found a lot of it. A lot of it is Verve, but some of it definitely is not. And then that led to, around the same time in 2002, a Verve remix project happening. I think Thievery Corp helped spawn this to some degree. Richard Dorfmeister, DeFaz, Masters at Work, King Britt, MJ Cole, Verve remix. And these always had really cool covers of kind of like a hi-fi with a retro look to them. This first Verve remix is really good. It really was fantastic. Who Needs Forever by Oscar Gilberto, remixed by Thievery Corporation, is great. Carmen McRae, How Long Has This Been Going On by MJ Cole is great. Nina Simone, Feeling Blue. Shirley Horn. I mean, really good stuff. Big fan of that one. That one's in my crate a lot. And this set really diminishes as you go forward. Here's volume 2. You got a really cool cover. There's a great Billie Holiday on here, Oscar Brown Jr., Brother Where Are You, Ella Fitzgerald, Slap That Bass, Nina Simone, fantastic. Willie Bobo, Dan the Automator remixing that. Dizzy Gillespie's Manteca, remixed by the Funky Lowlives. Sarah Vaughan, Whatever Lola Wants, remixed by Gotan Project. Some fun stuff. Not as good as the first one. Here's volume 3. I did like Nina Simone, Little Girl Blue on here. Billie Holiday, Speak Low by Bent, who's a British group. Anita O'Day, Sing 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 remix. But again, not as good as the first one. And then remix 4, I hardly dove into this one, to be honest. It came out probably 07, 08 or something like that. Probably is worth me giving another listen. But again, I'm always looking for more melodically fun, funky stuff. I don't want something to be too out. And remixes definitely seem to have a broad scope in terms of what the artists are attempting to do. We can jump through a few other things real quick. Ennio Morricone, the fabulous film spaghetti western music producer. He had, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, all of those famous movies. He also had a moment where he became kind of remixed for Fistful of Dollars, The Mission, Once Upon a Time in America, for a few dollars more. And some of these original songs are just fun to drop in little segments of, say, between like a segue between songs. And then that project was remixed, again, to varying results. Sofa Surfers, Da Faz, Tommy Hools, Nightmares on Wax, Fantastic Plastic Machine, Terra Nova. Some of the stuff's really good. Some of it I would never play. Here's another remix project. Morricone Remixes Volume 1. And I think this was an import. I remember there was a great version of Nina Simone on here somewhere that I thought was fantastic. But this was quite a thing that happened for a while there. Just a lot of it was coming out. And now we're going to be a little bit less remixy here, but this is Saint Germain's classic Tourist album from 2000, so 25 years ago this came out. And it fuses classic jazz sounds with kind of modern dance electronica pretty well. It really kind of stands the test of time. Soul Flute, Rose Rouge, Montego Bay, Sure Thing with the John Lee Hooker. There's some really good stuff on there. And that record doesn't ever stray too far from my crates. It's often part of my introduction to my opening to my sets, or maybe a wind down kind of track as well. This is Saint Germain Boulevard and Saint Germain from Detroit to Saint Germain. Ludovic Navarre is his real name, I believe. These are less jazz influenced, but they do have some elements of jazz on some of the tracks. A little bit more electronically driven, a little bit less jazz infused. And then this was Saint Germain's next album, which came out probably 2010, maybe a little later than that. 2015, 10 years ago. And it's not as good to me as Tourist. My brother loves it. It's very organic, has a little bit less groove, a little bit less playable beats. It's a little bit more world music and a little bit less accessible to me. This is a Thievery Corp album that I thought I'd include because it was very much driven by the bossa nova. And Thievery Corp, their original music is fantastic. A lot of it's kind of a lounge, down-tempo feel. All the elements of world music spliced in from all over the globe. They do stuff that's very reggae influenced, dub influenced at times. This one was very much directly driven by the bossa nova. And so, again, it's not really a jazz remix, but it certainly has... that's cool. I never noticed that the words in there before. Swadad are in the blue there. It's a great record. It's kind of melancholic, and it's something I like to play quite a lot. These records here are kind of a fusion thing. Antibalas and Breakestra, kind of modern bands playing somewhere between jazz and old Afrobeat, and just a real interesting mix of sonics and sound. some of it's more accessible than others. Ronnie Jordan was a guitar player who did some cool stuff for the Blue Note relaunch in the early 2000s. This Brighter Day remix with Mos Def is pretty fabulous. I play that quite a lot. You can't talk about modern reproduction of old music without talking about the Dap-Tone label. This is a great compilation on the Dap-Tone. They backed Sharon Jones, the great singer who passed away probably 7 years ago now. They also backed Amy Winehouse on her classic Back in Black record. They Budos band, Menahan Street Band. A lot of these projects are different configurations of the same musicians. It's really good stuff. Lee Fields is fantastic. Sugarman and Co. is fantastic. The Dap Kings, like I said, the Budos band's really, I love them a lot. Charlie Bradley's great. Antibala shows up on here, Che Nicole Makosa. So this is a compilation that they put out probably back in 2009, so a while ago now. It's a double album compilation, and I have probably the first 35, 40 Dap-Tone releases, all vinyl, all recorded with original instrumentation on analog equipment, on analog tape, and it really shows in the sound and the warmth of these tracks. Fabulous stuff. Kind of a contemporary of Saint Germain is Soul, S-O-E-L. This is his Memento LP. And it's got, again, a real world feel. Elements of jazz, elements of Afrobeat, elements of world music. Cinematic Orchestra was another band that was kind of doing jazzy, R&B, organically produced music. They had some popularity. They made a lot of compilations themselves back in that day. They were somewhere between lounge and down-tempo and, like I said, organic jazz. Good stuff. One of my favorite records ever is a deep house record by the group Blue Six. I'm a huge fan of Blue Six. Jay Dennis is the guy's name. Beautiful Tomorrow is from 2000, and it's probably one of my favorite records of all time. Music and Wine on here is one of my favorite songs. It's organically made deep house music with lots of R&B elements and urban, loungy sounds. So it kind of segues between houseier stuff into more like really urban R&B, but always with a real deep, dark, organic, rich sound with real vocals, not diva-esque vocals, but soft and soulful. And I'm a huge fan of Blue Six. That record especially is just fucking brilliant. Medeski, Martin and Wood, again, it's kind of a modern jazz, R&B fusion. They, great stuff. This is already 22 years old, this record, my goodness. But, I'm a big fan of those guys, and it's stuff I like to play at times for people. And then, the one record, I've talked about this before, I hate this record. And I don't say that very often. And you have to have a lot of records that admit you hate something you bought. But this Mad Lib record, Shades of Blue, it's fucking awful. There's moments that are... I've gone back to it with a clean palette probably 6 different times and said, let me give this record another chance. I was just in a bad mood that day. It just never really drops good beats or feels. Some of the mixing of the different Blue Note sounds from the vaults, the ideas are good, but they're just not quite in sync or polished. And I think at times he's more akin to the tempo being matched than the key or the sonic melody of something. It just never quite works for me. Some people loved it, and some people are probably getting mad saying, oh, how can you not like that Mad Lib record? For me, it's not good. And it's one of the rare records from that subgenre that I just never really could embrace. I tried, like I said, over and over and over again. And I always get a few people go, oh, how can you not like that record? And I'm sorry, I just don't. It's just not good. Not good enough, anyway. I'll leave it at that. So again, just fun stuff, and it gives an audience avenues into jazz that may get them back to Dexter Gordon, may get them back to Miles Davis, may get them back to some of that earlier cool and earlier hard bop and earlier pre-war small, post-war small groups of the Lester Youngs and Coleman Hawkins and Ben Websters and all those fabulous artists who I'm such a big fan of. And I play a lot of that stuff too. I mean, I love dropping some Sweets Edison and Ben Webster at a show. I love giving people some Illinois Jacket at a show. I love dropping some soft Ben Webster, some piano trio. I mean, bossa nova. It all gets integrated into my sets because jazz is such a foundational piece. And when you contextualize it for people and put it within the confines of everything else that you're playing, from Afro beats to drum and bass to house music to R&B to soul to reggae, jazz, bossa nova, the blues, it all fits together in this interesting pastiche of 20th century into the new millennia music. And that's fantastic to give people that relevance and that context and that connectivity, because jazz isn't some abstract world that's not connected. It absolutely is a part of this language. And you can make it feel comfortably part of that dialogue if you know how to connect that sinew and that tissue. And I don't think that's the same for European classical music. I don't think you could drop in some Vivaldi into a set and have people not feel like, well, that doesn't feel like it belongs here. Beethoven and Bach and Mozart. And I mean, I'm sure those artists all have moments that you could probably segue into a little bit. But jazz has that swing. Jazz has that groove. Blues has that groove. And it has that expression of a people struggling to survive and using the music to elevate themselves. And so that really separates that music from the European tradition, which is much more rigid and constructed, and you play what's on the paper. This music is very different. So jazz and blues are such an important part of all our conversations about American music. And it's not hard to connect Led Zeppelin, the Beatles and the Stones, Creedence Clearwater. All that music, it all comes from American music, American black music. A lot of the yacht music is just light, yacht rock. It's light R&B. I mean, that's really what it is. Steely Dan's light jazz. A lot of the 80s new wave sound, it's replicating American R&B from the 80s with those synths and those sounds and those bright horns and Kool and Gang Celebrate. So much of that new wave of pop music in the 80s was just completely, I mean, the Peter Gabriels, the Stings, I go on the list, Howard Jones, that's all rhythm and blues music. That's not quite as soulful as its original black counterparts. But they heard those patterns and those grooves and those beats and Phil Collins. I mean, it just goes on and on. So you're never too far away from R&B. Rock and roll came from R&B. Rhythm and blues and rock and roll were synonymous terms at one point in the late 40s and early 50s. So the connections are all so tangible, and it's so fun to remove those filters of genre and race and decade from people's mindset and to connect all of it into one wonderful pastiche, again, is the word I want. It keeps coming to my mind. But it's like a mosaic of 100 years of music. And this new gig I have at this speakeasy in a kind of a Shanghai 1920s vibe. Boy, it's fun going through the Capitol Library from the 50s, from the fun jungle sounds of Les Baxter and the groovy sounds of the Capitol studio bands with all the great singers over there, from Peggy Lee to Dean Martin. Obviously Sinatra was there. It's just a fabulous Nat Cole. I mean, then you get into all the great Blue Note Boogaloo. I mean, there's 100 years of music going down there when I play on Thursdays. It's really fun. And it's fun to go from a great swing count bassy into a drum and bass or a house track and have it just contextualize itself and feel part of the same tissue. Anyway, that's today's episode. Hope y'all enjoyed that. Y'all be safe. Y'all be great. I'm going to try to figure out how to get that stupid banner off my last episode, which I didn't see in the preview. And it did say I was going to put a watermark up. I didn't know it was going to be that big of a watermark. So apologies for that. Once it was posted, I figured I'll just try to fix it for next time around. But all the same, here we go. Appreciate you all. Please support the channel. Subscribe, hit that like button. Of course, if you want to donate and help the channel out, that's always appreciated. We'll talk to you all soon. Peace.